Hi, this is Isabel. It's nice to see you online. I hope you can make it now. Otherwise, this will be available on replay a little bit later. So today I'm going to talk about career gaps because I think a lot of people contact me on how to deal with career gaps. It's a big issue. So I want to also let you know that there will be these career talks every month at the beginning of the month. So next month will be on how to find a job in Switzerland, the do's and don'ts. And in March, it will be about job search for young professionals. And then please feel free to submit any type of topics that you're interested in learning more about. So basically the reason why I do these career lives is basically because I have a mission. And my mission is really to bring more empowerment to people. And this is why I write in my blog. And any appearances I make like this, it's really about bringing you more empowerment, more choices, more autonomy. And the idea is that really after each session, I leave you with some action items. So today on career gaps, the idea is really to understand, to own your skills and yourself, and then after that, what is the plan and what action you take. So please feel free to ask questions. I will try to answer as they're coming. And if you forgot a question, of course, I can answer a little bit later. I'll be checking in on Facebook. So the content of today's live webinar is really about owning your experiences, understanding your marketing plan and activities. So I think for a lot of people, owning who you are is difficult. And the reason why this is because we have a lot of messages every day online or offline about what we should look like, what we should do, etc. It could be pressure from family as well. So it's difficult to understand who you are, and there's some work that needs to be done on internal work. And you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do this internal work because you're always running around and going for the next thing. So there's really this aspect of owning who you are, whether you're a man, a woman, etc. And I wanted to give you some examples of leaders that are non-typical because, of course, especially for women, we still go with the idea that leaders are usually male, they're usually, a certain background, etc. So we have a preconceived idea of what a leader should be. So I wanted to give you a few examples so that you can take a step back and say, yeah, you're right. You know what? These people didn't have everything that would make them a leader from the beginning, yet they are. So the first one is Indian. Her name is Indra Nooyi. She's the CEO of Pepsico, very non-typical profile because of course she's a woman, she's of Indian background, and yet she's running one of the most successful companies. So you're welcome to look at her profile online, see what she's about. She's also doing a lot of talks and a lot of presentations. She's all her videos are available online. So Indra Nooyi is the first person to really look into. The second person is a French lady actually, and I've known her, I've met her. She's the co-founder of SeedStars in Switzerland. So SeedStars is an organization that helps startups from emerging countries to be known. So she does basically a big forum every year where people come from all over the world with their startup ideas. So basically this lady is from France, she's 28 years old. So just to let you know that, you don't have to be a certain age also to get access to leadership positions. So that's another non-typical profile. Another one is Jack Ma. Jack Ma is the CEO of Alibaba. And he talks himself about all his failures and the fact that he's tried so many times and he was having such a hard time to make it. And then finally with the website online Alibaba, it worked, and actually now it's a very successful business, online retailer. So Jack Ma is someone to look at as well. Another one is Mary Barra. Mary Barra is the GM CEO. Very, very difficult for a woman to become CEO of a car manufacturer. So she talks about that quite a bit if you watch her videos, what it's like, to be a woman leader, and also what it takes to enter those kinds of professions within the manufacturing world. And the last one is really a little wink, but I thought I'd mention it. I really debated whether I would mention it online because it's not really the typical example I want to promote by any means, but it is interesting. And his name is Jeremy Meeks. And if you haven't seen anything on him yet, you can Google his name. Jeremy Meeks is a gangster basically, and he was arrested for detaining weapons. But his photo basically was on the web all over, and all the women liked his photo. Actually, he's quite good looking, so now he's basically a very rich model. So, and he talks about, going from gangster to model, and it's quite interesting. But just to say that Just because you don't have the ideal profile, meaning you went to the right school, you're a man, etc., you have so many years of experience, doesn't mean success doesn't wait for you and you can't make it. So there's really different ways to get where you want to be. So just to leave you on that last fun type of example, basically I wanted to explain what a career gap is, because I think it's important to understand whether you're dealing with this right now or not. So a career gap is basically for women, for example, if you took maternity leave, but it can also be because you traveled or you wanted to experience something different at some point and you went a little bit sideways. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately because I'm dealing mostly with the Swiss market. Unfortunately, especially on the Swiss market, sometimes it's difficult to promote a non-typical profile, or if you have a career gap, because it will arise some questions. So for example, why did you go and travel? Why did you try to do your startup and now you're looking for a job? Why you're changing careers, etc. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to promote. But you have to understand, again, owning who you are. If you're a woman, if you're a man, you're young or you're older, you just have to use that as an asset. That's going to be the primary thing. So now I want to talk about something that's really the beginning for me. I was chatting with a friend actually about that. I think the main thing really is about confidence. It's about understanding your limiting beliefs, because everyone has limiting beliefs, and really tackle them one by one. So for me, it starts with really understanding what's going on in your head. And I think what I see with people that come to me and ask me some questions about their career, there's already a lot of limiting beliefs. Usually when people contact me, they will say, I don't have this, I don't have that. Now it's too late for me, I can't achieve this career, or it's going to be too hard to go back to school, or I'm not known enough in this particular sector. So you're already coming yourself with a limiting belief that tells you you can't do it. So if you have it in your head, it's going to be difficult to convince someone. If you're thinking, well, I'm a woman, so I can't be a CEO, for example, then already, how are you going to convince someone to give you an interview? So really understanding your limiting beliefs, and really for me, there's something that needs to happen in terms of transformation there. That's the beginning of dealing with your gap. It's really, if for example in your head you're thinking, well, I don't have experience in this field, so I may as well not apply, then it's really understanding why are you thinking that way. Why do you think you can't apply? You know, maybe the recruiter would be interested in having someone like you on board. So and you need to, and then of course you need to figure out if there's training gaps as well, and that's another issue. You know, of course, if you want to be an engineer and you've never you don't have a degree in engineering, then that's an issue. But I'm not talking necessarily so much about schooling. Sometimes people have limiting beliefs where they think, because I am such a person, I just won't get into that sector. So you need to understand why you're thinking that way. So really the transformation for me really starts with the mental preparation. It's okay, I'm missing something, maybe I don't have the skills, or maybe I don't have the proper connections to get into this sector, but then that's something I'm going to work towards. But you need to identify what it is that you need to work on. So really looking at, the first thing also would be looking at what you really want. Because I see people being a little bit dispersed, where they say, okay, I'll tap a little bit everywhere and see what happens. I try to have people think the other way around. It's not what is the market offering and what type of job do I want to do. It's what kind of job do I want to do, and how do I communicate towards the market to get some interest. So if you're going across, you know, organizations and you're having interviews and you're talking about, you know, different things, you're not going to convince, because you're going to be a jack of all trade. But if you say, okay, I'm a marketing professional, I'm an engineer, and this is what I'm good at, you know, I'm good at building things, that's what I do. And then you market your profile around that. And of course, at some point, a company will be interested in your activity. So it's really looking at it backwards, basically. It's really starting with you. It's not starting with what the market wants or what the needs are. And there's professions that are quite overcrowded. And I'm thinking marketing, because that's the first one that comes to my mind. Some professions are extremely crowded, meaning a lot of people and not many job slots. So if you're already competing with the masses, you're already in a difficult situation. Whereas if you're looking at it from what am I really, really good at, what's my thing, and I'm going to really pursue that, then you're already different from the masses. So it's really building your profile in such a way that you make your particularity, whether it is, maybe you've traveled to a certain place. I know I meet a lot of clients that are from foreign countries. Make your birthplace your particularity. If you know a country in Africa or in Indonesia, that becomes your particularity. And the employers that are working with these countries might be your future employers. So it's not really trying to be like everyone else, because that's going to be tough. I mean, if you're not from Switzerland, you haven't grown up in Switzerland, you don't have a network really built up, you can compete with people that have already established that for the last 20, 30, 40 years. That's going to be tough, but you can take it from a different angle. I came to Switzerland 10 years ago, 2007. I had absolutely no network. I worked for Lexmark, basically the printing industry. So when I left, I had absolutely no network. I didn't know necessarily any people in specific places. But, I worked with a coach actually, and I decided that I wanted to go towards not-for-profit. And then I started making some contacts there in not-for-profit. And then I started actually going to a lot of events. And that's how I built my network. So it's not really from birth or from someone that handed anything out to me. I just became very active. I went to a lot of networking events. I gave my card, and that has been now for several years. So now I have a network. But I'm just saying, just meaning it's not impossible. You just have to put the energy towards it. If it's something that you really want, you want to establish a specific profile for yourself in a region, you're going to have this period where it's going to be just hard work to get known, to establish yourself, to establish your credibility. And I think sometimes people want to take a little bit of a shortcut, and it's not necessarily they don't want to do the work, but it's because we haven't been trained to do that necessarily. And when I started looking for work way back when I graduated from college, it was easier. Let's face it. You would just send your resume, company would call you in, and then you would get a job basically. But now it's not as easy. So there's this whole branding yourself and establishing your profile that's new. Or actually it's just a little bit more work from a job seeker perspective than it used to be. But it's okay, you just have to establish your profile and just go with what the market wants now. So really thinking about what you want, what motivates you also, I would say would be something you need to figure out. Because otherwise what's going to happen is that you will go for the first job opening, you stay there 6 months, and then you realize you're bored or it's not the right job for you. Then you have to look again. And I see a lot of people changing companies quite a bit or changing jobs quite a bit. It can become a little bit difficult. And the other issue with changing jobs too much is that you get to a place where you will get maybe in your 40s, even 50s, where even if you have a lot of interesting experiences, it will be difficult for employers to hire you at that stage, because they will have a choice with the 20 years old that just graduated and are willing to work a lot, and interns, etc. So that's why you need to think about some kind of a plan that would work for you, and just commit also to that plan and stay for a while with a company. Or at least, if there's opportunities for you, obviously. So what motivation, where's your motivation comes from, that's going to be important. Where do you want to take your career? I just put a post on MBAs. People think MBA might be a little bit like something that will boost your career. It can, but it's not necessarily the case. So it's like any training that you would do. It's not everyone will make the same thing out of it. So you could have 20 people that go to the same training. Some people will go out of the training and they'll build their own company, or they'll have a great job, and then other people are still at the same place because they haven't made anything out of it. So training for me is just one method that you can use to learn some things, to open your mind also to some ideas, but it's not the solution. Training by itself is not going to solve all the problems. So that's why I say, really think about why you want to do a training, especially if you intend to do an MBA, or especially a longer term training. Because I've met a lot of clients in my practice that did MBAs or masters, but it took them away from the workplace for a while, and then they had a hard time getting back in. So yes, they had the degree, but in the interim, their colleagues had moved places, employers' needs changed, and they realized maybe the master's they did in the end is not really what they want to do. That happens as well. When you go through the program and you realize, I'm not really interested in this field in the end. Young people do that as well. where they go to school and they realize, I don't want to be a lawyer, I don't want to be a doctor, go back to square one and train in something else, and that's time as well. And all this can be, I'm not saying can be completely avoided, because in the end I think training is always a positive, but I think if you really ask yourself the right questions from the beginning, it can at least put you in the right, somewhat of a right direction. And that's why I get into the skills assessment, which I do with clients, and I highly recommend to make that step important for you, even though people sometimes are in a rush to get a job. Really think about what you want, what is your motivation, what is important to you, what are your values. For example, some companies are just not meant for certain people, you know, the way they work, the way they communicate. I've gone through a lot of different companies in my career. I started in the US in the 90s. I worked for mainly multinationals in my life. And the more I hear about multinationals, the more it rings memories for me about what I've lived when I worked for multinationals. It can be a great spot to train when you're young, because you learn methods, you learn how to work. It's usually a very demanding environment. So I've learned a lot from my multinational experiences. However, and especially now with people graduated from school, they're expecting also to have a little bit more of a life balance, and they want to also invest themselves in things that are a bit meaningful. My experience working multinational is that it's tough, it's demanding, so it can be a little bit against the values of wanting something a bit more flexible. So companies are evolving. They understand that they also need to do something about that, especially with the family leave, etc. But it's still, working for a multinational will be a big investment if you want to go that route in terms of your time, your intellect, your engagement. So that will have an impact on the rest of your life for sure. So you have to really put the right questions in the right place. You know, if it's something that you're willing to do at this stage, to commit to a big multinational, what are the implications of that, of course. So, and also thinking about, I always have a medium-term goal and a long-term goal, and it's like a pathway that you would follow. So when you start in a job, you say, okay, I will do this maybe for a while, with the idea of doing something else. So why is it important to have a plan, even though things change so quickly nowadays? Because at least it gives you a direction to follow. So even if things move around, companies, you know, get bought or you lose your job, at least you have an idea of where you're going. So it's a little bit like having a light on the sea, you know, where you know, if you're a boat, you know that you have this light and you have to follow it so that you don't lose your, you know, you can find your way towards the port. So it's a little bit the same thing. You have an idea of what you want to do, even if it's not, if you have to be flexible, of course, and things happen in life, but at least you have an idea of the type of trade that you want to be involved in. So for example, if I give my example, I know when I graduated from college, I wanted to be in public relations actually. So I started doing a lot of events, marketing. That was something I really enjoyed. And then I had the possibility to work in human resources. So I got into human resources, but I still had the marketing part and the events planning part in my head. So throughout my career, I've used this interest I have in my job. So whenever I worked in human resources, I was always the type of person who organized events, you know, for the company, or brought engagement with employees, etc. So it's something I've always known that it's something that I like. And now in my practice as a career coach, I also use the marketing part, of course, and the branding, which is really something that I enjoy doing, and use that to basically help job seekers brand their own identity so that they can find a job. And then when I was really interested in the topic, when I started my career, I didn't realize that it would take such a big importance. I mean, now it's almost a must. Something that you would do maybe as a plus in the past, like having a photo in your resume, was really something that very few people did, and was maybe because they enjoyed it, always enjoyed being in events, and I didn't mind having my photo on resumes, etc. But I know some people always had a second guess about that. But now it's not even a choice that you have. We're in the digital world, we're in the image world. So you need to be present, you need to be visible, basically. Otherwise, you're just an unknown entity, and it's just the way the world works. So you need to include that in your branding or marketing strategy as a candidate to an employee, to a job. So that's for the transformation part, in my view, going from owning who you are, what you want to do, and really having your mindset in the right manner towards your goal so that you can start thinking differently about yourself and what you're looking for. And then, of course, thought is not enough. So you need to move towards really doing something. It's not just thinking, yes, I want to get into that direction, I want to do this job. Then it's actually making some steps towards that. So the action is really about, for me, you need to be very concrete, especially when you're job seeking, because there will be some slow times. So meaning for a lot of people, basically, especially if you work for a company, your agenda is based on everyone else's agenda. So you know, when you get into work, your boss will call you, you will have meetings, you will have basically a lot of things that will happen during the day where you just follow the crowd, basically, or you follow what's happening in the company. But when you're job seeking, you become a little bit like a freelancer. You wake up in the morning and your agenda is open to whatever you put in it. So if you don't put anything in it, nothing's going to happen. So there's this discipline that needs to be part of your day-to-day agenda, where you say, okay, today, you know, I need to have an agenda made where I do some things that will bring me closer towards a job. So for example, I need to have some events that I will attend in the next 2-3 weeks. I need to have some companies that I will target and try to find people's names on LinkedIn, for example. So it's a little bit like you're going at it as an entrepreneur, you know, building your profile and building your presence and reaching out to future employers. So that takes a lot of planning, in my view, and I give a lot of examples. I have a webinar, or actually a presentation I did for in France last year. So it's on my YouTube channel, where I get into the details of how to do your plan for the week, the month, the year. So I will include that as a link after the live Facebook, so that you can go and watch some of the videos that I've done on topics that are very close to that, the planning part. So it's really having some content, you know, I'm going to do so many applications. It's a numbers things as well. You know, if you send 25, 30 applications, you're going to get more feedback than if you send 1 or 2. It's just a numbers game. So there's the idea about the numbers games. There's also the idea about doing different activities, you know, in your planning. So it's not just answering to an ad on a job board. It's not just talking to people. It's a little bit of everything. So when you're looking for work, especially if you have a career gap, definitely the job boards are not going to be very helpful for you, because on the job boards, it's usually jobs that are quite defined from the beginning, and the person who's going to receive the application will look for similar wording. So either it's there or it's not there, and your chances to go to the no pile is quite high. So that's why for people who have gaps or non-typical profile, I always say meet people, talk to people, because when you meet, the first thing people see about you is your energy. So if you have a lot of energy, if you're someone that's interesting, I talk a lot about this topic of being interesting. If you're someone who has energy and who's interesting, which happens to me all the time. I meet people that are interesting. I don't even worry about where they come from or what their resume says. I'm just interested in them. And then based on that, you know, it will basically determine what I will do in the future. You know, is it someone that I want to stay in touch with? Yes or no? Could we do some business together? Yes or no? And that gets determined pretty much from a meetup and not so much from a resume. So if you're someone who you know that your resume is not the ideal career path, definitely you will have to work on the other things to sell yourself in a different manner. So going to events where you will meet people, where you will learn how to present yourself. I work on this as well with job seekers. Oral presentation, communication is quite important. So, and that's something you learn by doing as well. It's not something you learn overnight. So the more you do it, same thing, the easier it becomes. So networking events used to be a big thing for me that I was a bit nervous about, but I've always liked meeting new people anyways. So if you like meeting new people, if you like learning about new people or learning about different people's history, then you become interested in just going to events and learning more about others. So that's why it starts. That's how you network. I just said it right there. It's not about meeting someone in a specific field. It's more about getting to know people. And then you will see that if you're open to get to know new people, then they will also be open to you. And then you will probably build something a bit more concrete for you than just answering to an ad on a job board. So that's a side note. So really becoming your own project manager, which I repeat in all my videos, is going to be the trigger to seeing a change in your job search right now. So if you're stuck, you've been looking for a while, really working on the mental processing of how you can turn your limiting beliefs to something positive, and then making some steps towards that. So now probably what you're waiting for, and I will just make a quick pause because I can talk too much, just to see if there's some questions before I move to what kind of activities can you do to increase your chances of being noticed and getting a job, basically. So I'm just looking quickly. Don't hesitate to leave it there and I will answer. So what's important in terms of getting back to the table, because this is what it's about, it's really thinking about what are your assets. So thinking about it as a product, basically your product. Imagine, you go to a store, you see a lot of products. You go to to a commercial center and you have all these things that come to your eyes and you don't even know where to look. So the best way to market yourself is really knowing your assets. What are your assets? Are you someone who's really good verbally? Can you talk well? Can you write well? Can you engage with certain kinds of people well? Do you have a specific knowledge about a specific country? Do you speak several languages? So it's really knowing your asset. That's the beginning of it. Then it's where is my niche? So basically based on your trade, if you're a financial person, you want to be in all the financial groups possible in LinkedIn and Facebook because that's your niche. If you're in marketing, same thing, you want to be in the marketing hubs. If you're in human resources, you want to understand all the trends in human resources and go to all the latest conferences. So it's really, you need to be top in your field. You need to understand the latest trends in your field if you want to be considered an A player, basically. So that means someone who's at the highest level of your game. So, and that you can do without being an employee. So if right now you're in a specific trade, even if you don't have a job, you can still go to the conferences for your trade, go to the events where you're going to meet people that are like you. And that's where you will get a lot of information as well of what's going on. After meeting all the financial people, maybe you understand, well, in Geneva, this is what's happening. Maybe I should go towards Zurich, or maybe I should go towards London for banking, for example. So you will learn a lot of information that will make you gain so much time, but you need to know what your field is, where you want to be headed towards, so that you can really start meeting the right people as well. So really understanding your field, understanding how to become an A player is important. And then you also need to learn from that market. So and that's interesting, especially if you're in a type of profession that's really crowded, where there's a lot of applicants. You need to understand what the market wants. And I'll give you an example with marketing, actually. A lot of people have done marketing a few years back when marketing was really about pushing messages out. So it could be, you're doing marketing via placing ads in newspapers or magazines, or you did marketing by putting together a TV commercial for your company, etc. I'm talking about being marketing internally. However, things have changed in marketing. Now, marketing means more about the pull, meaning that you create a brand, you create a story, and then people will buy into the story or not. So if you haven't been trained on that in your field, or you haven't really followed up on what the latest trends are and how people purchase, then you will be a little bit left, when you have the interview, people will sense that you don't have experience there, that you've never actually worked on branding or developing social media. You will be less of an interesting marketing professional than someone who's done it. So that's just an example, a concrete example of what it means to actually concretely work on your trade, become an expert, become very good at what you do, and then people will come to you. So that's basically my message here. So the example I wanted to give you in terms of attracting companies is Red Bull. Because Red Bull is known as a company to be quite vocal about what they do, and they're really into extreme sports, etc. So Red Bull will only attract certain kinds of people, and they're very, very strong in their marketing on that, or in their branding. So what I mean by that is that you can't be everyone's employee. So if you're someone who doesn't drink any energizing drink, you're not really into extreme sports either, probably you're not the best suited profile for Red Bull. And I could give examples like that, many examples like that. I'm thinking L'Oreal. L'Oreal is beauty products, hair care products, etc. If you're someone who's never touched a lipstick in your life, probably L'Oreal is not your best bet for an employer. Same thing with not-for-profit. Are you really someone who's really into helping people in the world, or working for a mission? Are you really committed to that, or you don't really think about it so much? Then maybe not-for-profit is not your best bet. So again, you're not going to attract everybody. You're going to be probably better suited by working on your niche and where you have the best bet. So that's why I wanted to give the Red Bull example, because I think it's quite easy to understand why you would be their employee or not. And I think a lot of companies now are using their pages, their web pages, to target specific people. So in other words, now the strategy more and more is about, I'm an employer, this is what I stand for, this is my story, this is the kind of people that, these are the kind of people we want to work for us. They communicate that out, and they want people that will be engaged with that, and that's how they recruit. So it's a little bit different than in the past. Companies would just post a job on a job board and just basically mainstream type of recruitment. So now we're definitely not longer mainstream, now we're really niche. So employers want certain kinds of employees that really buy into their kind of strategy and philosophy. And same thing, employees now are going to want companies that share their values. And actually, I hear that more now in the last 6 months from my clients than I used to. Now people do communicate with me. They say, I want an employer who has this kind of philosophy, protects animals, no testing, certain basically, with the environment, etc. So people are more and more conscious now about who they want to work for. They're not just wanting to work for anyone. So that becomes the trend basically in recruitment. So in terms of activities, basically, I use this because it's really the latest book I've read and I really enjoyed it, The Purple Cow. It's really by Seth Godin. I talked about it in my blog. It's really about being remarkable, meaning being worth noticed. So the activities you can do to help your visibility, for me, in very simple ways, even if you're not a company with huge means, it's really already being different in how you communicate with your future employer. So of course you don't want to do a sample cover letter and resume you downloaded and just plugged in your information. That would be the worst thing you can do. And I just start having my hair pulled up when I see people saying, please send me a template, or where is the latest Europass template. So you want to do something very, very customized. And you would customize it also to the culture of the company. So, make sure in your colors that you're using, or the font that, it matches a little bit the company where you're applying. So that your resume and cover letter should definitely be customized and individual, that no one else will have the same one. The other thing you can do is make up the effort during the recruitment process to be different. So for example, make sure you look at the recruiter's profile before you go there. Now you have that option with LinkedIn where you can look at people's profile, see where they're coming from before you actually go to the interview. Also make sure that you multiply opportunities to network. So with someone that's competing for the same job, if you have a network, that's something that you can really put forward in an interview. So if you meet with a company and you say, I already know people in this industry, definitely you'll be more marketable than someone says, I just arrived, I don't know anybody. Because nowadays, companies are not just buying you, they're also buying your network or the potential they can do business with your network. And in organizations like insurance or banking, they're just not buying you, they're also buying your client base or your network. So make sure that you work on that. And also do not take yourself out of the process yourself too soon. So if you think about, I don't have this, I don't have that, it's not worth going for this job, just keep going. You never know. I mean, at some point you could find someone that says, you know what, this profile is interesting, I want to meet her or him. So the best thing is really, if you think you have something to bring to a company, at least apply, and you'll see, let the company decide if they want to take you out or not, because you're missing something. But I would say if you have most of the main items on the job description, you should apply. So that's also goes with the mental preparation I was talking about. I think people tend to take themselves out of the process a bit soon because they think they're missing something, when in the end they have so much to bring, they just haven't figured it out. So that would be one of the activity. Another activity is invest in yourself. Invest in yourself every day. I invest a lot on myself. That's a choice I make. But I think you can't really convince someone, whether it's a recruitment interview or any kind of exchange with somebody, you can't convince someone if you haven't done it for yourself. So in other words, you can't convince someone that you're the best person for the job, that the company should invest in you if you haven't done it yourself. So if you need to take a training and it's a little bit of money, invest in it. You know, if you need to redo your whole wardrobe because you're now going for a job that requires to be dressed up, you know, in a certain way, go for it. So all this will actually increase your chance of getting a job where you're doing a little bit more than the other person. The other thing to work on as well to increase your chances is to bring up your energy levels. So I noticed that when I talk to individuals is that sometimes because you've been away from the job market for a while, or because also of your personal life, you're a little bit down on yourself. So you tend to speak a little bit slowly or not even speak that much. So you're just a little bit down. So I think really working on having that energy is really important. And there's a lot of things you can do to increase your energy. It could be, you know, taking some, I always advise to take some courses where you work on public speaking and you learn how to do it. So Toastmasters, for example, or places where you would just work on your public speaking. So that will bring up your energy, and also anything that has to do with artistic activities, because they also bring up, you're a little bit away from the business world, but it also brings some creativity and energy inside of you. So music, art, sports also are very good in terms of energy levels. So you can get a little bit more confident and bring that little extra to the interview that you have. And lastly, make sure that you understand what gap you need to fill. So this is very technical here in terms of training, but if you have a gap, for example, let's say you're missing a language or you're missing a certificate in something, you need to understand exactly what it is and just work on that particular thing and really get it done. So for example, if you're missing a language, you know, you just need to go and learn that language. That will really help you in terms of getting more job opportunities. But again, it goes back to, do you really want this type of job? Are you willing to invest in yourself and taking the course that will put you in a different category and then give you a better chance to get the position? So these are basically an amount of activities that you can do to increase your chances to secure a position. And of course, this speech is really towards Switzerland, because I think probably most of the people that watch my videos are focused on the Swiss market. But I would say that's probably valid also in another country. So in terms of what I offer in my sessions, so I have built a package that's a full job search package, where it includes some videos online where you can get trained on the base. And then I've customized some sessions with myself on Skype where we can discuss really your particulars. So you get the main idea of what you need to do to get a job. And then when we meet together online, I give you the specifics of what you need to do in your particular profile. There's also a lot of information on companies that is downloadable from there. I also provide you with some contacts. I put you in touch with my contacts on the Swiss market, which is really very interesting when you're new or you don't know many people. So at least you don't waste time building this, waste too much time building your network. So the contacts are quite interesting. And I also offer, there's an ebook on there where you can also learn how to work on your profile. So all these together is available on my website. Feel free to send me a message. If you're interested, we can talk a little bit more about it to see how it would help you in terms of your current status and where you want to go. Because again, my approach is very much a customized approach, and I want people to be successful. So in the end, based on your profile and what you've done in your career, I want to provide you with the best service so that you can get some results. So talking about results, it leaves me with my last thoughts and actions. So after each live Facebook, I will give you some action items of things that you need to do as of today if you want to see a change in your current situation. So the first one is define your career objectives and what kind of gaps you have. So what is your objective? What do you want to achieve? And do you have any gaps? I was talking about, do you have a training gap? Do you have experience that you're missing, etc.? The second item is define your limiting beliefs and try to see each one, what you need to do about it. So the limiting beliefs, remember, it's about I'm not good enough, I'm not tall enough, young enough, or what have you, and to see how you can basically address each one to kind of move a little bit beyond that and start moving forward. The third thing is about defining your marketing plan. You know, how are you going to go about finding your future employer? Where do you want to go? Where are you going to send your applications? What type of contacts do you need? So that would be your third exercise to move yourself in a different direction. So anyway, I spoke a lot. Again, I didn't see questions, but maybe because there's quite some material in my Facebook Live, you probably need to think about it and send me some questions later. I'll be happy to reply. And I'm looking forward to talking to you soon again in the next Facebook Live, which will be in February. In February, I'm also doing an event in France. I will be taping it so that you can watch it. And it's really about recruitment trends and how employers are branding their web pages, etc., to attract their future employees. So it was very nice to be on Facebook today and to share my knowledge with you and hopefully make a difference in your current situation. And I would love for you to write to me and say that you were able to move forward and find some solutions that would make me very happy. So I will talk to you soon. And again, thanks for being online today.